Excuse me, sir. I'd like to check my account balance, please. A black kid in worn-out shoes stood at the counter. 10 years old, cracked soles, frayed laces, thrift store jacket swallowing his small frame. The bank manager stopped, looked the boy up and down slowly, then burst out laughing. "Check your account?" His voice echoed across the marble lobby. "This is First National Heritage Bank, not a welfare office for street kids." Bradley Whitmore stepped closer. His expensive cologne clashed with his ugly sneer. "Look at those shoes! Look at that skin!" He shook his head in theatrical disgust. "Another black kid looking for a handout. You people are all the same. Get out before I call security. We serve real customers here." The security guard moved closer, hand on his baton. A wealthy customer shouted from behind, "Throw him out already! He's stinking up the place!" Laughter rippled through the lobby, cruel, loud, united against one small boy. No one defended him, not a single person, but not one of them could have imagined what would happen next. Within the hour, Bradley Whitmore himself would be begging, not for money, but for mercy. Wesley Brooks didn't run. He didn't scream. He stood his ground, just like Grandma Eleanor taught him. "Sir, I have an account here." His voice trembled but didn't break. "My grandmother opened it for me. She passed away 2 months ago. She left me this." He held up a brown envelope. Inside were the documents, the bank card, the letter Grandma wrote him before she died. Bradley Whitmore rolled his eyes dramatically. "Your grandmother?" He looked around at the watching customers, playing to his audience. "Let me guess. She also left you a mansion in the Hamptons and a private jet?" Laughter again. The wealthy customers loved the show. Chelsea Morrison, the senior teller, leaned over her counter. Her lip curled with disgust. "Sir, should I call the police? This kid is obviously running some kind of scam." Bradley waved his hand. "Not yet. Let's see what kind of con he's pulling first." He snatched the envelope from Wesley's hands, pulled out the documents roughly. His eyes scanned them with bored contempt. Then he saw the bank card. Black, premium tier, platinum reserve, the kind issued only to high net worth clients. For 1 second, something flickered across Bradley's face. Confusion, maybe even doubt. But prejudice is a powerful thing. It can blind you to what's right in front of your eyes. Bradley shook off his doubt. "Where did you steal this?" He held up the card, showing it to the lobby like evidence in a courtroom. "A black kid from the projects with a platinum reserve card? You really expect me to believe that?" Wesley's hands trembled. "I didn't steal anything. It's mine. My grandma—" "Your grandma, nothing." Bradley threw the card on the counter. It skidded across the marble surface. "I've been in banking for 15 years, kid. I know a fraud when I see one." He pointed to the far corner of the lobby, near the janitor's closet, near the bathroom entrance, the worst seats in the building. "Sit over there. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'm calling headquarters to verify this so-called account." Wesley walked to the corner, head down, shoulders hunched, each step heavier than the last. He sat on the cold metal chair, alone, surrounded by marble and brass and wealth that seemed to mock his worn-out shoes. He pulled out Grandma Eleanor's letter. Her handwriting was shaky, but full of love. "My brave Wesley, never let anyone make you feel small. You are worth more than they will ever know." He read those words 3 times, trying to believe them. His phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Lawrence. "Stuck in a meeting. Be there in 20 minutes. You're doing great, champ." Wesley almost smiled. He had no idea how much those 20 minutes would change everything. Tier 1, the waiting game. 15 minutes passed, then 20, then 25. Wesley sat in the corner, invisible, forgotten, erased. The bank hummed with activity around him. Customers came and went. Tellers smiled and processed transactions. Business continued as usual. But not for Wesley. He watched Bradley Whitmore help a white man in a golf polo open a brand new account. The man had arrived 15 minutes after Wesley. He was served immediately. No questions, no suspicion, no demands for extra identification, just smiles and handshakes and, "Welcome to First National Heritage." Wesley watched Chelsea Morrison bring Bradley a cup of coffee from the break room. They stood together near the water cooler, laughing. Their eyes kept drifting toward Wesley's corner. More laughter. He couldn't hear what they were saying. He didn't need to. He watched a wealthy woman in a designer dress deposit a check for what looked like thousands of dollars. The whole process took 3 minutes. She left without even glancing at the black kid sitting alone near the janitor's closet. An older woman named Diane Campbell finished her transaction at the main counter. She was different from the others. She glanced at Wesley. Her face tightened with something that looked like discomfort, maybe guilt. For one moment, Wesley thought she might come over, might ask if he was okay, might be the one person in this entire building who showed some basic human kindness. But she didn't. She just clutched her designer purse a little tighter and walked toward the exit. Her heels clicked against the marble, each click a small betrayal. Wesley pulled out Grandma Eleanor's letter again. The paper was already soft from being handled so many times. The edges were starting to fray, just like his nerves. "You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and loved more than you know." Grandma used to read him that quote every night before bed. She said a famous author wrote it. "Winnie the Pooh," she told him with a wink. "Even bears know wisdom." He didn't remember the author. He just remembered her voice, warm like honey, safe like a fortress, gone like smoke. His phone buzzed again. Uncle Lawrence. "Meeting running long, 15 more minutes. Stay strong, champ." Wesley typed back with shaking fingers. Okay. He didn't mention the laughter, the insults, the way Bradley looked at him like he was trash that needed to be disposed of. He didn't want to worry Uncle Lawrence. 30 minutes now, still waiting, still invisible. A security guard named Jerome Davis stood near the entrance. He was black, like Wesley, mid-50s, tired eyes that had seen too much, gray creeping into his close-cropped hair. Jerome had witnessed everything, the insults, the laughter, the way Bradley humiliated the boy in front of everyone. He wanted to speak up. God, he really did. But he had a mortgage, 2 kids in college, 11 years at this bank building toward a pension. Silence meant employment. Employment meant survival. Survival meant his family didn't end up on the street. Jerome looked away, hated himself for it, looked away anyway. Tier 2. The interrogation. Finally, after 32 minutes, Bradley called Wesley over. Not to the main counter where normal customers were served, to a small desk in the back corner, away from the pleasant banking areas, away from the comfortable chairs and complimentary coffee, visible to everyone, but isolated, like an animal in a zoo exhibit. Wesley sat down in the hard plastic chair, placed his grandmother's documents on the desk carefully. Bradley didn't touch them, didn't even look at them. "Let's try this again." His voice was cold, clinical, the voice of a man performing for the security cameras. "You claim you have an account at this bank. You claim your grandmother left you money. But you have no proper ID, no guardian present, no proof of address. And frankly, kid, you don't look like someone who belongs in an institution like this." Wesley's throat tightened. "I have my school ID, and my grandma's letter, and the bank card with my name on it." Bradley picked up the school ID with 2 fingers, like it might be contaminated. "Lincoln Elementary School, 5th grade." He tossed it back on the desk. It slid toward Wesley, almost falling off the edge. "This proves absolutely nothing. Any kid can get a school ID. Doesn't mean you have money in our bank." "But the card? Where are your parents?" The question hit Wesley like a physical blow. His father had left before he was born. His mother had died when he was 3. Car accident. He didn't even remember her face except from photographs. I live with my uncle." His voice came out small, wounded. "And where is this mysterious uncle?" "He's coming. He's in a meeting. An important meeting." Bradley leaned back in his expensive leather chair, crossed his arms over his expensive silk tie. A meeting, of course. How convenient. His smirk was ugly. Let me guess. He's the CEO of some Fortune 500 company? That's why a 10-year-old black kid in raggedy shoes has a platinum reserve card? Because his uncle is so rich and important? Before Wesley could respond, Chelsea appeared beside Bradley. She bent down and whispered something in his ear. They both looked at Wesley. Chelsea's smirk matched Bradley's perfectly. I don't know what kind of scam you and your so-called uncle are running, Bradley said, louder now, wanting the other customers to hear. But it won't work here. I'm freezing this account pending a full investigation. Wesley's eyes went wide. You can't do that. That's my grandma's money. She saved her whole life. Your grandma. Bradley's voice dripped with sarcasm, each word a small knife. Right. The teacher who supposedly left you a fortune. Tell me something, kid. What did she really do? Rob a bank herself? Deal drugs? What? The words hung in the air like poison. Wesley felt something crack inside his chest, in the place where he kept Grandma Eleanor's memory safe. Tier 3. Public abuse of power. Bradley stood up from his desk, straightened his tie, smoothed his jacket, then he raised his voice, made absolutely sure the entire lobby could hear every word. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. His voice carried like a practiced actor's. This is what we deal with every single day. People who don't belong in places like this, trying to take what isn't theirs. 6 customers watched the spectacle. Some nodded in agreement, their prejudices confirmed. Others looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. None of them spoke up. Diane Campbell had returned. She'd made it to her car in the parking lot, but she couldn't turn the key, couldn't drive away. Something, guilt, conscience, basic humanity, had pulled her back inside. Now she stood near the entrance, watching everything unfold. Her hands were shaking. I don't know where you stole that card, Bradley continued, pointing at Wesley like a prosecutor at a trial. I don't know what kind of lies you've been told, but you are not getting a single penny from this bank. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Wesley's vision blurred with tears. He tried to stop them. Boys don't cry, some voice in his head said. Grandma's voice answered, Boys feel, Wesley. Feeling is strength. My grandma worked 40 years, he managed to say. His voice cracked, but he kept going. She was a teacher at Lincoln Elementary. She saved everything for me. She promised. Spare me the sob story. Bradley's voice was a slap. I've heard them all before. Every con artist has a dead grandmother and a tragic tale. He turned to Jerome, still standing by the entrance. Security, escort this kid out of my bank, now! Jerome didn't move. His feet felt nailed to the marble floor. Did you hear me? Bradley's voice sharpened. I said now! Jerome walked toward Wesley. Slowly. Each step a small death of his self-respect. 11 years of silence. 11 years of watching Bradley humiliate people who didn't fit his image of a real customer. Immigrants struggling with English, women in second-hand clothes, elderly people confused by technology. Anyone who looked poor, sounded different, seemed vulnerable. Jerome had never spoken up, not once, not ever. Today was no different. Today, he was still a coward. He stopped in front of Wesley, extended his hand, couldn't meet the boy's eyes. Wesley stood up on his own. He didn't need help. He picked up his grandmother's letter from the desk, pressed it against his heart like a shield, walked toward the door with as much dignity as a 10-year-old could carry. Bradley's voice followed him like a curse. Next time you want to beg for money, try a homeless shelter or a street corner. That's more your natural environment. Someone in the lobby actually laughed, a real laugh, loud and cruel. Wesley reached the exit. His phone started ringing. The screen lit up. Uncle Lawrence, calling. He tried to answer. His hands were shaking too badly. The phone slipped from his fingers, crashed onto the marble floor. The screen cracked. Jerome picked it up. For one moment, their eyes met. In that moment, Wesley saw something he didn't expect. Shame. Bone-deep, soul-crushing shame. Jerome was drowning in it. But shame wasn't enough. Words were needed. Action was needed. Jerome handed back the phone. Said nothing. Let the boy walk out alone. Wesley pushed through the automatic doors. They closed behind him with a soft whoosh. Inside the bank, Bradley straightened his tie again. Smiled at Chelsea. And that's how you handle it, he said, satisfaction oozing from every word. Give these people an inch, they'll take everything. Chelsea nodded, but her smile had faded. Something uncomfortable stirred in her stomach. Bradley's phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject line, urgent, Q4 investor visit, immediate preparation required. He glanced at it, deleted it without reading. Too busy, too important, too confident in his own power. He should have read that email. He really, really should have. Outside, the November wind bit through Wesley's thin jacket. He sat on a stone bench in the parking lot. Drew his knees up to his chest. Made himself as small as possible. The brown envelope with Grandma Eleanor's documents sat beside him. The cracked phone in his lap. The letter clutched in his fist, getting more wrinkled by the minute. He looked down at his shoes, the ones Bradley had mocked, the ones everyone had laughed at. Grandma Eleanor had bought them at a thrift store last spring. $2. Wesley had been embarrassed at first. Other kids at school had Nikes and Jordans. Shoes don't make the man, baby, Grandma had said, kneeling down to tie the laces for him. Character does. And you have more character in your little finger than most people have in their whole bodies. She had worn her own shoes until they fell apart, fixed them with tape and glue until they couldn't be fixed anymore. Wesley now understood why. Every dollar she didn't spend on herself was a dollar she saved for him. Tears fell onto the cracked phone screen. He didn't bother wiping them away. He tried calling Uncle Lawrence, straight to voicemail. He sent a text, typing through tears. Uncle Lawrence, they kicked me out. They said I stole Grandma's card. They called me a thief. Then he waited. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. No response. The meeting must still be going. Uncle Lawrence always put his phone on silent during important meetings. He said it was professional courtesy. Wesley had no one to call, no one to help, no one coming to save him. A woman walked by. Business suit, designer bag, perfect makeup. She saw the crying black boy on the bench, the one who'd just been thrown out of the bank. She'd seen the whole thing through the window. She kept walking. A man jogged past with his golden retriever. The dog wanted to stop and sniff Wesley. The man yanked the leash, hurried on. Cars pulled in and out of the parking lot. People entered the bank. People left the bank. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked if he was okay. Wesley was invisible. Just like inside. Just like always. He unfolded Grandma Eleanor's letter one more time. The paper was damp now, spotted with tears. My brave Wesley, the world will sometimes be cruel. People will judge you by your shoes, your clothes, the color of your skin. They will try to make you feel worthless. But you are not worthless. You are my greatest treasure. Everything I have saved, everything I have worked for, it's all yours now. Use it to fly high. Use it to prove them all wrong. And remember, dignity is not given. It is carried. Carry yours with pride, baby. Always. All my love. Forever and ever. Grandma Eleanor. She had promised him. Sitting in her little kitchen, eating chocolate chip pancakes, she had promised. One day, you'll walk into that bank and they'll treat you like a king, Wesley. They'll call you sir and shake your hand, you'll see. Today, they had called him a beggar, a thief, a con artist. Today, they had thrown him out like garbage. Grandma Eleanor, wherever she was, must be heartbroken. Inside the bank, the silence of complicity. Diane Campbell stood near the entrance, frozen. She had come back, driven by guilt, pulled by conscience. She had watched the whole scene through the glass doors, watched the boy sit on the bench, watched him cry alone, watched people walk past without stopping. She should go out there, sit with him, tell him it would be okay. But what would she say? What could she possibly say? She had stood right there in the lobby, watched Bradley humiliate that child, heard the insults, the racism, the cruelty, and she had done nothing, said nothing, just like everyone else. What right did she have to comfort him now? Jerome Davis stood at his post by the door. His eyes kept drifting to the parking lot, to the small figure on the bench. His chest felt tight. His hands wouldn't stop clenching. 11 years ago, Jerome had been that boy. Different bank, different city, same humiliation. A white manager had refused to cash his paycheck. Need extra verification for people like you. A security guard had followed him around a store. Just doing my job, sir. A realtor had suddenly found that an apartment was no longer available after seeing his face. 1,000 small cuts over a lifetime. Some not so small. And now? Now Jerome was the one in the uniform, the one following orders, the one enabling the cruelty. His younger self would be disgusted. He moved toward the door. Maybe he could just... Jerome! Bradley's voice cut through like a whip. Stop daydreaming. There's a delivery at the back entrance. Handle it. Jerome hesitated. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then he turned and walked toward the back. The moment passed. Outside, Wesley was still alone, but not for much longer. A black Mercedes S-Class turned into the parking lot. Sleek, silent, expensive. It stopped near the entrance. The door opened, and everything was about to change. Lawrence Brooks stepped out of the Mercedes. 6'2", silver-gray suit that cost more than Bradley Whitmore's monthly salary. Silver at the temples, an aura of quiet authority that made people instinctively straighten their posture. He spotted Wesley immediately, his nephew, his late sister's only child, the last living piece of his mother Eleanor remaining in this world, sitting on a cold bench, crying, clutching a crumpled letter, completely alone. Lawrence's jaw tightened. A muscle twitched beneath his eye, the only visible sign of the fury building inside him. He walked to the bench, knelt down so he was at Wesley's eye level. Hey, champ. His voice was gentle, a stark contrast to everything Wesley had heard in the past hour. I'm here now. Wesley looked up. His face crumpled completely. Uncle Lawrence. He threw himself into his uncle's arms, sobbed against his expensive shoulder, tears and snot staining the silk wool blend. Lawrence didn't care about the suit, didn't even notice. He held his nephew tight, didn't rush him, didn't ask questions, just let the boy cry until the shaking stopped. Tell me what happened. Wesley told him everything, every word, every insult, every laugh, every moment of humiliation. Lawrence listened in absolute silence. His face remained calm, controlled, but his eyes grew darker with each sentence, harder, colder. When Wesley finished, Lawrence stood up slowly. You did nothing wrong, he said. His voice was firm as bedrock. Nothing. Do you understand me? This is not your fault. None of it. But they said they were wrong, and they're about to find out exactly how wrong. He took Wesley's hand, started walking toward the bank entrance. Wesley pulled back. I don't want to go back in there. Please, Uncle Lawrence, please. Lawrence stopped, knelt down again. I know, champ. I know it's scary, but sometimes we have to face the people who hurt us. He squeezed Wesley's hand. Not to fight them, not to yell at them, but to show them that they couldn't break us, that we're still standing, that they have no power over us. Wesley looked at the glass doors, at the marble lobby beyond, at the place where he'd been humiliated. He thought about Grandma Eleanor. What would she want him to do? Dignity is not given, it is carried. Okay, he whispered. Okay. A second car pulled into the parking lot. A luxury SUV with tinted windows. A woman stepped out. Tall, elegant, professional. Patricia Edwards, Regional Director of First National Heritage Bank. She had been driving to the quarterly investor visit, the one Bradley kept ignoring in his emails, when her phone rang. Lawrence Brooks on the line, CEO of Meridian Capital Holdings, the bank's largest institutional investor. He explained what had happened in exactly 60 seconds. Calm, factual, devastating. Patricia had immediately changed course. She approached Lawrence now, nodded respectfully. Mr. Brooks, I cannot tell you how sorry I am. This is completely unacceptable. Completely. Lawrence's expression didn't soften. We'll discuss what's acceptable inside. My nephew deserves an apology, and I want to see exactly who we're dealing with. Patricia nodded. Of course. Of whatever you need. They walked toward the entrance together. Lawrence, Patricia, Wesley. Wesley's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his ears. His legs felt weak, rubbery, like they might give out. The last time he walked through these doors, he was thrown out like trash. Now he was walking back in, with his uncle's hand warm around his, with a regional director beside them. He didn't understand everything that was happening, but he understood this. Something had shifted. The ground beneath his feet felt different. The automatic doors slid open. The lobby fell silent. Every head turned. Bradley Whitmore saw Patricia Edwards first. His face went white as chalk. Regional Director. Unannounced visit. This was very, very bad. He hurried over, adjusting his tie, forcing his VIP smile onto his face. Ms. Edwards, what a wonderful surprise! His voice was too loud, too eager. We weren't expecting you until... Plans changed. Patricia's voice could have frozen water. Then Bradley noticed the man beside her. Tall, distinguished. The kind of suit that screamed money and power. And holding hands with... Bradley's stomach dropped. The black kid. The one he'd just thrown out. The one he'd called a thief, a beggar, a con artist. The kid was back, and he was holding hands with someone who clearly mattered. I'd like to introduce you to someone, Patricia said. Her voice carried across the silent lobby. This is Lawrence Brooks, founder and CEO of Meridian Capital Holdings. The name hit Bradley like a physical blow. Meridian Capital Holdings, the bank's largest institutional investor, 34% ownership of the parent company. The man who could make or break careers with a single phone call. That man, that Lawrence Brooks, was holding hands with the kid Bradley had just destroyed. I believe you've already met my nephew, Lawrence said quietly. He stepped aside. Wesley stood there, eyes still red. Grandmother's letter still clutched to his chest, but now he was standing straight, chin up, shoulders back. Bradley's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Confusion, recognition, dawning horror, pure terror. I didn't... If I had known who he was... That's exactly the problem, Lawrence said. Isn't it? Chelsea Morrison dropped her pen. It clattered against the marble floor like a gunshot in the silence. Jerome Davis, standing near the back now, felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been dead for 11 years stirring back to life. Diane Campbell, still by the entrance, pressed both hands against her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Every single person in that lobby was watching. The customers who had laughed, the employees who had enabled, the bystanders who had stayed silent. All of them witnesses now. To what was about to happen next. Lawrence released Wesley's hand. He walked toward Bradley slowly, each step deliberate, each step measured. The walk of a man who knew his power and didn't need to rush. Bradley took a step backward. His back hit the marble counter. Nowhere to run. Mr. Whitmore? Lawrence's voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The entire lobby was holding its breath. My nephew came here today to check his account balance. His grandmother, my mother, left him that money as his inheritance. It's legally his. Every penny. Can you explain why he was denied service? Bradley's mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked like a fish drowning in air. There were irregularities. We were just following standard protocol. What irregularities? Lawrence's voice remained calm, controlled. Somehow that made it more terrifying than shouting. The account is properly documented. The funds have been verified by your own bank. What specific irregularity justified treating a 10-year-old child like a criminal? I didn't realize. If I had known who he was, that's exactly the problem. Lawrence stepped closer. Bradley tried to press himself into the counter, but there was nowhere to go. You didn't know who he was, so you decided he was nobody. You saw a black kid in worn-out shoes and you made a judgment. Not about protocols, not about policies, about who deserves to be treated like a human being. The words landed like hammer blows. My mother worked 40 years as an elementary school teacher. She rode the bus until she was 70 because she never wanted to waste money on a car. She wore the same winter coat for 15 years. She ate store-brand groceries so she could put money aside. Lawrence's voice didn't waver. If she had walked in here today, you would have treated her exactly the same way. Laughed at her. Humiliated her. Thrown her out. Bradley said nothing. There was nothing to say. She would have deserved better. Just like Wesley. Just like every single person who walks through those doors. Lawrence turned to Patricia. Before we discuss consequences, I want Mr. Whitmore to see something. Patricia nodded. Lawrence walked to the main counter. Wesley followed, still holding his hand. Chelsea stood behind her computer, frozen. Her face was the color of old paper. Pull up my nephew's account, Lawrence said. It wasn't a request. Chelsea looked at Patricia. Patricia nodded once. Trembling fingers typed. The screen loaded slowly. Everyone held their breath. And there it was. Account balance, $487,263. Almost $500,000. 40 years of a teacher's salary. Every birthday card with money tucked inside. Every Christmas bonus. Every summer tutoring job. Every single dollar Eleanor Brooks had earned, saved, sacrificed. All for Wesley. Bradley stared at the number. His face went gray. His mouth fell open. No sound came out. Complete silence. Then Lawrence spoke. He laughed at your shoes. His voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the lobby. He stopped laughing when he saw the balance. The number glowed on the screen. $487,263. Bradley couldn't stop staring at it. His brain couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. $500,000 in an account belonging to the kid he'd just called a beggar. That, Lawrence said, pointing at the screen, is the money my mother saved over 40 years. She rode buses in the rain so Wesley could go to college someday. She wore secondhand clothes so Wesley could have a future. She ate rice and beans for dinner so Wesley would never go hungry. He paused. Let the words sink in. And you almost took that away from him. Because of his shoes. Bradley finally found his voice. It came out cracked and desperate. I didn't know. If I had known there was that much money, and that's the real problem. Lawrence's voice went cold, sharp as a blade. You would have treated him differently if you knew he had money. Your respect comes with a price tag, but human dignity doesn't. He looked at the number one more time, then at Wesley. My mother always said something to me. A person who treats the waiter differently than the CEO has no character at all. Today you showed your character, Mr. Whitmore. The whole lobby saw it. Bradley had nothing to say, because Lawrence was right, and everyone knew it. Patricia Edwards stepped forward. Her heels clicked against the marble like a countdown. Bradley, My office. Now. Bradley didn't move. Couldn't move. His legs had turned to concrete. Bradley! He blinked, looked at Patricia, then at Lawrence, then at Wesley, the boy he had mocked, insulted, humiliated, thrown out, the boy whose grandmother had trusted him with everything she'd ever earned. Bradley's career flashed before his eyes. 15 years, building relationships, climbing the ladder, corner office, company car, all of it crumbling like sand. I can explain, he whispered. You'll have that opportunity. Patricia's voice was ice and iron. In private. Now. She turned and walked toward the back offices. Bradley followed on unsteady legs. Lawrence watched them go. Then he knelt beside Wesley. You okay, champ? Wesley nodded slowly. His eyes were still fixed on the screen. Grandma saved all that for me? Every single penny. She started the account the day you were born. Added to it every month. Never missed once, even when times were hard. But she never had nice things. Her apartment was so small because she was giving everything to you. Lawrence's voice was soft. That's what love looks like sometimes, Wesley. Sacrifice. Putting someone else's future ahead of your own comfort. Wesley thought about all the times Grandma Eleanor had said no to things for herself. The winter coat with the broken zipper, the ancient television that took 5 minutes to warm up, the reading glasses held together with tape. She could have had so much more. Instead, she gave it all to him. I'm going to make her proud, Wesley whispered. I promise. You already have, champ. Lawrence squeezed his shoulder. You already have. Inside Bradley's office, the temperature had dropped 20 degrees. Patricia sat in Bradley's chair, behind Bradley's desk, a deliberate choice. Lawrence stood by the window, arms crossed, a silent witness. Bradley sat in the visitor's chair, the cheap one, the one where customers sat when they came to beg for loans. I've already reviewed the security footage, Patricia said. She turned her laptop around, pressed play. Bradley watched himself laugh at Wesley, call him a beggar, threaten to call security, announce to the entire lobby that black kids don't belong in real banks. His own voice, his own words, his own cruelty, recorded forever. You violated 3 company policies. Patricia's voice was clinical, methodical. Discrimination based on race and appearance, denial of service without legitimate cause, and falsification of official records. Bradley's head jerked up. Falsification? Patricia pulled up a document. You filed an incident report 23 minutes ago. It states that Wesley Brooks was aggressive, threatening, and refused to provide proper identification when asked. She looked at him. The security footage shows a polite 10-year-old boy asking to check his account. It shows you laughing at him, insulting his race, and having him physically removed from the premises. I was protecting the bank's interests. You were protecting your prejudices. Patricia closed the laptop. There's a significant difference. She stood, walked around the desk, stood over Bradley like a judge about to deliver sentence. Effective immediately, you are suspended without pay. Your Q4 bonus, all $35,000, is forfeit. A full HR investigation will begin tomorrow morning. If it confirms discriminatory intent, and based on this footage it will, termination for cause will follow. Bradley's face crumbled like wet paper. 15 years. I gave this bank 15 years. And in 15 years you should have learned that every customer deserves basic respect. Patricia opened the door. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your access credentials have already been revoked. Bradley stood. His legs barely supported him. He looked at Lawrence one last time, searching for mercy, finding none. If he wasn't your nephew... You're right. Lawrence's voice was quiet, devastating. If he wasn't my nephew, he would have walked out with nothing, filed a complaint that would have been ignored. Maybe called a lawyer who would have told him it wasn't worth pursuing. That's exactly the problem, Mr. Whitmore. He shouldn't need me to be treated like a human being. No one should. Bradley had no response. He walked out of his own office, past his own employees, through his own lobby. For the last time. Chelsea Morrison was next. She sat in the same meeting room where she'd whispered about Wesley, smirked at his humiliation, enabled Bradley's cruelty. Now she was in the hot seat. "You didn't start this," Patricia said, "but you participated in it. You reinforced Mr. Whitmore's behavior. You failed to intervene when a child was being abused." Chelsea's mascara ran down her cheeks in black rivers. "I knew it was wrong," her voice cracked. I didn't want to make trouble. I didn't want to be the one who—" "Silence is not neutral, Ms. Morrison. Silence is a choice, and it has consequences." Patricia outlined the disciplinary measures: formal reprimand, mandatory training, permanent note in her file, 0 tolerance for any future incidents. Chelsea nodded through her tears, accepted everything. She had learned something today. The lesson had cost her dignity, but at least she still had a job. Jerome Davis stood by the entrance after his meeting with Lawrence. Not a formal meeting. Just two men talking. "You picked up his phone when he dropped it," Lawrence said. "You handed it back to him." "It wasn't enough." "No, it wasn't." Lawrence didn't soften the truth. But it was something. A small kindness in a moment when he had none. "I should have done more. I should have said something. I should have—" "You should have. Yes." Lawrence looked at him steadily. "The question is, what will you do next time?" Jerome thought about his mortgage, his kids, his pension. Then he thought about Wesley, 10 years old, crying on a bench, completely alone. "Next time I speak up," he said, "no matter what." Lawrence nodded, extended his hand. Jerome shook it. It wasn't absolution. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a promise. To himself, to Wesley, to every person he might be able to help in the future. A promise he intended to keep. Diane Campbell had been waiting. Through all the meetings, all the drama, all the reckoning. She was still there when Wesley and Lawrence walked toward the exit. "Wait!" Her voice came out strangled. "Please!" They stopped. Diane approached slowly. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking. "I'm so sorry." The words tumbled out. "I was there. I saw everything. I should have said something. I should have defended you. But I stood there. Like a coward." Wesley looked at her. This woman who had watched his humiliation in silence. He thought about Grandma Eleanor. What would she say? "Forgiveness isn't about them, baby. It's about setting yourself free." "You came back," Wesley said quietly. "That matters." Diane's tears fell faster. "I'm filing a complaint. A formal one. As a witness. Everything I saw. Everything they said. It goes on the record." Lawrence nodded. "That takes courage." "It takes less courage than your nephew showed today." Diane looked at Wesley. He stood there and took everything they threw at him. He didn't run, he didn't scream, he just endured with dignity. "I don't know if I could have done that." Wesley didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing that felt true. "Thank you for coming back." Diane nodded, wiped her eyes, walked to customer service to file her complaint. One small act of courage. It was a start. The news spread through the bank like wildfire. By closing time, everyone knew. Bradley Whitmore, 15-year veteran, branch manager, terminated for cause. The official reason? Violation of company policies regarding customer service and professional conduct. The real reason spread through whispers and texts. He mocked a black kid, called him a beggar, threw him out. Turns out the kid's uncle owns a third of the bank. By the next morning, it was regional news. By the following week, national. Not the details. Those were kept private to protect Wesley. But the story got out. Bank manager fired for discriminating against a child. Major investor involved. Complete corporate accountability. People talked about it, argued about it, shared their own stories. It became a moment. Bradley Whitmore's termination was finalized within 72 hours. No severance, no recommendation letter, no pension benefits beyond what was legally required. 15 years of work, gone in 15 minutes. He applied to other banks. Word had spread. No one would hire him. He ended up managing a check cashing store in a strip mall 3 towns over, helping the same kinds of people he used to mock. Some called it karma. Others called it justice. Bradley called it nothing. He didn't have the words. Chelsea Morrison kept her job. Barely. She completed every training module, showed up early, stayed late, never smirked at another customer again. 6 months later, she transferred to a different branch. Needed a fresh start. 6 months after that, she quit banking entirely. Went back to school. Became a social worker. She spent her days helping families navigate systems designed to exclude them. The same systems she had once enforced. The irony wasn't lost on her. Neither was the lesson. 3 weeks after the incident, Jerome Davis faced his first test. A young Hispanic woman came into the bank. Nervous. Uncertain. Her English wasn't perfect. She struggled to explain what she needed. A new teller, young, impatient, was getting frustrated. His sighs were getting louder, his eye rolls more obvious. Jerome walked over. "Is there a problem here?" The teller started to explain. Jerome cut him off. "This woman is a customer. She deserves patience and respect. Help her properly, or I will find someone who can." The teller's eyes went wide. He apologized, helped the woman with genuine care. Jerome went back to his post. His heart was pounding, his hands were shaking. But he had spoken up. For the first time in 11 years, he had spoken up. And it felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. Patricia Edwards didn't stop with Bradley. Within 3 months, she implemented sweeping changes across the entire region. Mandatory bias training, every employee, every quarter, no exceptions, new customer service protocols, every inquiry handled within 15 minutes, regardless of appearance. Mystery shoppers hired to test compliance, an anonymous reporting hotline. For customers and staff alike, zero tolerance for discrimination. A small plaque mounted at every entrance. Every customer deserves respect. First National Heritage Bank. It wasn't revolutionary. It wouldn't fix centuries of systemic racism overnight, but it was a start, a real one. Patricia made one more change, a personal one. She called Lawrence Brooks directly. "I want to do more than just discipline bad behavior," she said. "I want to honor your mother's legacy. What would that look like?" Lawrence thought about it. Talked to Wesley. Talked to his memories of Eleanor. A week later, they announced it. Named after Wesley's grandmother. Funded by the bank. Administered by a community foundation. Every year, 2 scholarships awarded. Full tuition, books, living expenses. Recipients. Students from underserved communities pursuing degrees in education. Teachers teaching future teachers. Eleanor Brooks's legacy multiplied. The first recipients would be announced the following fall. The selection committee would include community leaders, educators, and one very special advisor. Wesley Brooks. 10 years old, already changing the world. When Lawrence told him about the scholarship, Wesley was quiet for a long time. "They named it after Grandma?" "They did. So her dream keeps living. So she keeps helping kids, even though she's gone." Wesley looked at the framed photo on his dresser. Grandma Eleanor, smiling, wearing her old coat and her old shoes. "She would have cried," Wesley said. "Happy tears." "Yeah," Lawrence's voice was thick. "She would have." Wesley walked to his closet, pulled out his worn-out sneakers, the ones Bradley had laughed at. He placed them on his shelf, next to the photo. He would never throw them away. Never. The video surfaced 3 weeks after the incident. Not from the bank's security cameras. Those were sealed. From a customer's phone, the young professional who had been filming that day. He'd meant to post it for laughs. "Drama at the bank. Easy engagement, quick views. But then he'd watched what happened after. Watched Lawrence arrive. Watched Bradley crumble. Watched justice unfold in real time. And he felt something unexpected. Shame. He had stood there, filming, laughing, entertained by a child's humiliation. What kind of person did that make him? He deleted the original video. But guilt lingered, festered, wouldn't let him sleep. 3 weeks later, he posted something different. His own face, his own confession. I was there that day. I watched a bank manager humiliate a 10-year-old black boy for wearing old shoes. I watched. I laughed. I filmed it like it was entertainment. I was wrong. I was part of the problem. That kid showed more courage than anyone in that lobby, including me, especially me. So if you ever see something like this happening, don't watch, don't film, don't laugh. Speak up, because silence makes you complicit. I learned that the hard way. Don't be like me. The video went viral. 3 million views in 5 days. Comments flooded in. People sharing their own stories, their own shame, their own promises to do better. A national conversation started about bias, about assumptions, about the snap judgments we make based on appearance. Wesley never saw the video. Lawrence made sure of that. The boy had been through enough. But the message spread anyway. One small act of honesty, one confession, millions of conversations. Change doesn't come from big moments. It comes from countless small ones. This was one of them. 8 years later, Wesley Brooks walked across a sun-drenched campus, Georgetown University,